Welcome to this week's edition of Drupal Chat. I'm Mark Isaacson, and I'm your host. You can find me on Drupal.org at Vegan Triathlete. And today, I'm really happy to get the chance to not be doing this all on my own, and instead be getting a chance to talk with Cathy Days. Welcome, Cathy.
Hi.
I'm so glad to have you here. So I contacted Cathy to see if she'd be interested in being a guest on the show because Cathy, I got to know Cathy through the work that she did with this core mentoring, but that's not the only thing that she does with Drupal, and that's not even primarily the thing that she does right now. So I'd like to give everybody a chance to find out about how Cathy first did get involved with Drupal and the Drupal community. So how did you get involved, Cathy?
Well, I guess it started like about 8 years ago. I was a computer science instructor at UIC, and I was working part-time, and I was involved with a nonprofit, and they didn't have a website. And I was like, oh, well, I can make a website. I've done that before, like hand coded it and everything. I was like, I wonder what new technologies there are out there now for websites. And I did a comparison between a few different CMSs, and I don't remember why I decided to do it with Drupal, but I did. And I started making these really tiny sites for organizations that I was already supporting, but who didn't have websites. And I did that for a few years. And then as I got more and more involved and I was building more complex things, I had to get in the issue queues to look up solutions. And then eventually I started filing issues.
Yeah.
And then once I started filing issues, they weren't necessarily getting addressed. Surprise. And I was like, oh, well, I wonder what I can do to help get these issues addressed that I need for my project. And I was like, well, what I can do is reduce some of the other tasks that the maintainers have so they can pay more attention to mine. And so I started in Contrib, probably with location was my first major effort. And I contacted the maintainer and I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm thinking about going through your issue queue and cleaning it out, like closing things, answering support questions, filing follow-up comments to get more information from people. Is that okay? And they were like, yeah, that's totally okay. And I did that for a really long time. And then I think I went to DrupalCon Denver and participated in the sprint there and ended up leading a table that was working on something. And about that same time, I also started getting involved with the IRC core mentoring. And the sprint at DrupalCon was really great. And when the next one was coming up, Jess, XJM, was organizing the sprint, and she was also doing the core office hours. And I had some ideas for her about how to improve things. And she was like, come on board, like, help us organize the sprint. And I did that. And then I think it was DrupalCon Portland. We prepared a presentation together. And that was my first DrupalCon presentation. And that was a really great experience, preparing it with along with other people who had experience speaking at DrupalCon. That really helped us be successful and get me involved in speaking. But I had a lot of ideas about the sprint at Portland, and Jess and Andrea Super
Sendoodles.
They were busy in Australia at the time at DrupalCon Sydney. And I kept pestering them. And they said eventually, like, Cathy, you have all these ideas. How about you organize the Portland sprint? Because we're busy with this other thing. And I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Then after that, I sort of led the organization of DrupalCons for a really long time.
Yeah. Was DrupalCon Denver your first DrupalCon or just the first time you participated in a sprint?
No, my first DrupalCon was DrupalCon Chicago. I'm from Chicago.
Yeah.
And it was a terrible experience to go to a DrupalCon in your own city because I was staying at home. And so I would get up every morning and take the L like forever into the city. And at like 6 o'clock, I would go home.
Yeah.
And everybody else was doing all this stuff. And I was like, I have to go home. And that taught me that DrupalCon is a lot more than sessions. And that I should never go to a DrupalCon in my own city again.
That's really interesting. I'm actually originally from the Midwest as well, a suburb northwest of Chicago. Although I was living in Colorado when DrupalCon Chicago came around, and I didn't go to DrupalCon Chicago. At the time, I was still pretty early in my freelancing career, and I just felt like, I can't really afford the time off from the work and the expense of going there and all this. So I didn't go to DrupalCon Chicago, but then it came to Denver the next year after that, and I do live in Denver. And so I did go to DrupalCon Denver as my first DrupalCon, and I did the exact same thing as you did, is I stayed home. I did not stay there. So I would get up in the morning, I'd go there, and this was my first DrupalCon, so I had no clue how to do DrupalCon. To me, it was like, oh, I've got to get to every session that I can. I've got to fill up every slot and make sure that I get to sessions so I get all this education. So I did the same type of thing as you did, is that I packed my schedule full of going to sessions, and then I would go home at the end of the day. I didn't even know about the extended sprints on Friday. So when I found out that they had sprints on Friday, I was like, oh, well, I didn't really know about this, and I can't really come on Friday. And then I felt really disappointed about it. And so when I think after Denver, it was Portland, right? I'm forgetting.
I think
Portland.
so.
Yeah. So I made sure with Portland that I was going to be there for Friday. But then I didn't know about that there was even then extended sprints on Saturdays. So when I left on Saturday from Portland, I was missing stuff I could have done on Saturday. So I've gradually done that same type of thing, is try to get that opportunity to have more of the interaction with people and the social aspects of DrupalCons instead of focusing on, let me try to get to as many sessions as possible. It's like, well, look at birds of a feather. Let me see about getting some more one-on-one interaction with people.
Yeah, the core conversations are really nice at DrupalCons because your participation there is actually influential. The other sessions, typically I watch on video after I come home.
Yep. Definitely.
I think, Denver, Portland, at that time, the Drupal Association on the DrupalCon website, in the banner on the website, they list the dates. And they used to only list Tuesday through Thursday.
Right.
And so when you signed up for your ticket, that's what you thought DrupalCon was. And you can tell a difference now. If you look at the dates of a recent DrupalCon, they list Monday through Friday. So I think that helps people's expectations and helps people who haven't been there before not miss some of the really valuable things that are there. So I think the communication in terms of what's available, at least on Monday and Friday, is a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little clearer now, but still people wouldn't really know about the fact, like, so there are people that are doing their sprinting in the regular sprinters room on Friday, but the big focus on Friday is like the core mentored sprinting. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that, but then there are people who hang around on Saturday to still do more sprinting. So, and that's a fun time as well, given that you kind of have your feet under you and you can kind of take care of yourself some.
Yeah, I think the best combination is probably, like, if your time is limited, is to get there late Monday, go to sessions Tuesday through Thursday, go Friday, and go Saturday. And then if that's all you can do, then I think you've got a taste of everything then.
Yeah, yep, yeah, for sure. So when I had first come across you at DrupalCon, at that time you were I'm not sure that you were actually, I don't think you were actually working as an employee for anybody. I think what you were doing, I think you might have had some part-time work for like blogging and stuff? Like somebody was kind of paying you some money to blog. Tell us a little bit about how, how your employment status has gone here as you've gotten involved with the Drupal community.
So I think, in terms of Portland, I think I was on scholarship to go. I think after Portland may have been Munich. And at Portland, everybody that I knew was talking about Munich and going. And I was like, oh, there's no way I can go to Munich. I didn't really have a job at that point. I was still doing some small time freelancing. And they were like, oh, no, you can totally go. Just go and apply for scholarship. And I did, and I got it. And so for a long time, when I would go to events, the only way that I could go there was on scholarship. And then I got, it was bad camp one year. I ended up meeting the owners of Compress, and I had been talking up to people, and they were like, look, what you need to do at Bad Camp is you need to go to like every single sponsor table and be like, hey, I'm looking for a job, because everybody there is looking to hire people. And so I did. And I would go to all these places and I was like, hey, I was looking for a job. And they're like, great, we'll hire you. And I was like, but the job that I want is to mentor, organize sprints, and go to events. And they were like, what about client work? And I was like, not really. And so everybody said no. But at the time I talked to Compress, and they were interested in leveraging some English blogging and also getting some exposure in the community. And so we struck up a deal where they gave me a couple hours a week for very little amount of money. And that was the first time that I got paid to do anything like contributing or mentoring.
Yeah.
And I did that for a while. There were a couple other small companies who funded me for a short period of time, like Cheppers from Hungary. They're awesome. Break Tech from Chicago. And then after that, I was influenced by Ash Dryden's post on paid work versus volunteer work in open source. And her position is that we can't expect people to do it. And the diversity of people involved with a project is limited when you rely on volunteers. Typically, volunteers have less family commitments. They're young, so they tend to be white guys.
It's okay.
Because other demographics have a lot more responsibilities at home. So sometimes they work two jobs. Sometimes they have a job and they have to take care of family. And that doesn't leave time for contribution. And so her position was that we'll get a lot better diversity when we pay people for the work that they're doing. And I was like, right on! So I decided that I wanted to get paid for my job. And I posted a blog post saying that I didn't need a job, that I already had one. I just wanted to get paid for the job that I was doing. And I think it was at Nice Camp, I had given a couple of presentations back to back in the morning, and somebody came up to me after one of them, a bunch of people actually, which was really great. Like the best thing you can ask for as a speaker is that when you're done, people come up to you and ask for questions. It's like the best thing ever. So a bunch of people came up to me, and one of them came up to me and said, hey, I don't need to talk to you right now, but we should talk later. And then they kind of got out of the way, and then I answered questions that people had about the presentation that I did. And I was like, people say that to you when they want to offer you a job. And it turns out that was somebody from Black Mesh. And they had a community liaison position open. And they thought I would be good for it. And that was 2 years ago, I think. And the relationship has worked out really super well. That's still my job. Yeah. So my job as community liaison is to go to events. I go to about 14 a year. I travel about 120 days a year. So that takes up a lot of my job time.
Yeah.
And then initially, the rest of it was spent working on Drupal 8 to try and get it released. So initially, that was just kind of like working on anything Drupal 8-ish. And also to blog and write blog posts. And then as the years went on, I stopped working on just any Drupal 8 issue, and I decided for myself, I felt like if Blackbush was paying me to work on Drupal 8, it was kind of my responsibility to use that time as wisely as possible. And so I moved from working on multilingual issues, which I did for a really long time, to working on criticals. And it was like, I didn't care what it was. If it was critical, it was blocking release, and that's what I was going to work on. And so I did that for a while. Then we had the release, and my focus shifted a little bit after the release.
Okay, so when you're saying that you're working on these things, give us an idea of like, what does working on it mean? Because you mentioned when you initially got involved in the issue queues, you were filing issues, you noticed that your issues weren't getting addressed, and so you were kind of what we call triaging the issue queues, you know, helping close duplicates or answer support questions or get follow-up information. But it doesn't sound like you were writing code. When you were working on a Drupal 8, are you writing code right now? What types of things are you doing?
Right. So once I got involved with the IRC office hours, was much more directed towards like doing a variety of tasks. And some of those were triaging. So I started working on core and triaging core issues, and then doing whatever small thing was after that. Because I have a lot of programming experience through college education and through my work at the time, but none of it was Drupal. And I had never programmed in PHP or JavaScript or anything like that. Yeah. So that was new to me, but it was easy to pick up because it was like, oh, it's another programming language. It's similar to all these other programming languages that I teach at my job. And so that was easy for me to pick up. And so I went from triaging to working on issues like relatively easily. And also because I was part of the core mentoring program, I had a lot of support while I was doing that. So I would work on a core issue and I could get feedback from a mentor quickly. And so that's the secret to working on anything, actually, is working with other people. And so I had that support in core when I started moving to doing whatever it took to get the issue done. And whatever it takes is sometimes doing manual testing, doing reviews, updating issue summaries, but it's also sometimes like using Git and iterating on some work that other people have done. And so eventually I moved more into that. And I think that happened because of the core mentoring, because the issues that I was working on had other people that would give me feedback.
Yeah, great. So let's just talk a little bit more about the core mentoring, because actually this year at New Orleans, I did participate as a core mentor for the first time. I've made my way kind of through the process here of having been somebody who was mentored before, and then, you know, maybe kind of try to do some stuff on my own, build up a little confidence. And then this year I said, okay, I feel ready to actually be a core mentor for somebody. And so this year, actually, you've kind of, you've shifted your focus a bit, and you were there on Friday, but actually, during the rest of the week leading up to then, I actually had gone to Black Mesh to talk to, I forget what he calls himself, if he's the CEO or CTO or president, whatever, I don't know what his title is. But I said, hey, is Cathy even around this week? I haven't seen her. And he said, oh, yeah, she's here. So I hadn't even seen you till Friday. So definitely this year, things have changed with that core mentoring. So describe the bit of the shift that you've made there, starting this year, evidently.
So initially, especially when I got involved, the Friday sprints and the extended sprints especially were community run. And the DA wasn't really involved. And over the years, we've codified a lot of the strategies for Friday, documented them. There are handbook pages, there's Google Docs. We've tried to get new mentors involved so that more people know what needs to happen. We even have the mentor orientation is like scripted. The workshop, it also has a presentation that can be shared. And so with these documentation things in place and with incremental additional involvement from the DA, every con, the amount of work that I needed to do got less. And also I did it like over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, you know what? I'm not really learning anything anymore. I learned a ton. I learned a lot about volunteers and organization and communication and logistics. Like I learned a lot, but after doing it a bunch of times, I wasn't really learning anything. And this con that we were just at down in New Orleans, a couple of months ahead of time, I got asked if I would be the core conversation track lead. And because I was really involved with core, and I've been to a lot of Drupal cons, I had opinions on how the core conversation should be run and what should be selected and what kind of conversations we should be having. And Drupal 8 just got released. And there was kind of a shift in the topics that would be relevant right after a release. Like we needed to do a lot of reflection. We needed to think a lot about how the long release affected people. And so I was like, yeah, I'll totally be the core conversation track lead. Like I really want to do that, but I can't do that and everything else that I'm doing. So I passed on the main coordinator lead position to Alina, Ali Mac, and she had been involved organizing previous cons as like the communication person. And so she transferred from the communication person to like the lead coordinator. And then when it came time to look at all the things that need to be done throughout the week, I was like, no, I really want to go to the core conversations that I'm track chair of.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go to any of these other meetings. And I felt like people thought that that I needed to be there to do like mentor orientation because I had done it so much. And I was like, no. Like Alina and I have worked for like a year and a half to start documenting all of the information that needs to get transferred during these things. We've got it polished. We've got it down. It's on a handbook page. Anybody can lead this thing. It might help if they've been to one before, but all they need to do is just be a little bit brave to say, yes, I'm going to do this, because there's a lot of support in place and a lot of history. So you don't have to make anything up. So this time, because I was track chair, I on purpose said no to everything except for Friday. I love Friday. Friday is awesome. And I super enjoy standing in front of hundreds of people and telling them what to do. Whereas some of the other coordinators that are involved prefer to do more behind the scenes things. So it worked out to transfer those behind the scenes to other people, but to still take on this kind of like Friday lead, because it just wasn't a good fit for other people.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We'll have to see next year. Well, I'm saying next year. I still am doing. I haven't made it to a European con yet. That's going to be a bit probably till I can pull something like that off. It's going to be North American cons for me. So when I talk about next year, I mean next year North America.
There's always scholarships to apply to.
Yeah, well, I haven't thought about doing that, and I don't know what the scholarships cover, because honestly, it's not the cost of the con so much as like looking at the airfare to get overseas. Yeah, and potentially a hotel. But anyway, so I'm saying we'll have to see next year at con. Are you wearing a Corn Camp T-shirt right now?
Yeah, Drupal Corn.
Yeah, Drupal Camp. Yeah, Drupal Corn Camp. Yeah,
it's one of the best camps in North America.
Yeah. I haven't made it to that one yet. I've only been to Drupal Camp Colorado and to Bad Camp, and then I've been to whatever it's been now, 5 or 6 North American cons, whatever since. So Denver was my first one. But anyway, I'm wondering if the next North American one, if maybe we would see Lucas running that one, because it seemed like this year he's been involved as a core mentor before, but it seems like this year he maybe stepped up a little bit more as well to
Yeah,
kind of,
he totally did. So we kind of like co-ran Friday.
yeah,
And for a while, he took over the whole entire room. And so I think that's really good. I think um, having somebody do something like that once or twice is probably a better model than having them do it like 9 times in a row.
yeah, yeah,
Because it also helps people realize who are attending that there's nothing special about the people who are leading. If they see a different person leading frequently, uh, they can better envision themselves in that position. And so I think having other people take leadership roles is in a rotation is not only good for the people who are leading, but really good for the people who aren't yet leading,
yeah.
because they see a wide variety of people doing the leadership, and then they can envision themselves doing it.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Let's move it along, kids. We're coming up close to almost a half hour, or maybe even a little over a half hour at this point. And I do respect the time that you're willing to spend here. So tell us a little bit then about where right now. Oh my gosh, I see you answered my next question. Some of the places you're planning to go here. So that's exciting to see. I get to. I'm getting the cheat sheet here, folks. I can see where some of our answers are coming from. So where are you focusing your attention now, and where are you thinking that you're going to be moving your attention to in the future?
So in the summer, it turns out, is a big travel time for me. Not only are there more events to go to, but my situation with my kids is better. So I don't have to watch them during the summer, whereas I do have to spend time with them during the rest of the year. So I do a lot of traveling in the summer. Mm-hmm. So upcoming for me, I'm keynoting at Drupal Camp Montreal, which is June 16th through 19th. And then I'm leaving like kind of sort of directly from there to go to Dev Days in Milan, Italy. I get to go to 2 European events as part of my job. I get to go to the European DrupalCon and Dev Days. And then any other European events that I go to are on my own.
Right.
But Dev Days is an awesome event. It's 6 days this year, and the focus is not on sessions. There's a lot of sprinting. The sessions that are there have a different flavor to them. And there aren't a lot of, there's not a big expo room with sponsors and things like that. It's going to be a super good event. So that's right after Montreal. So Dev Days will be June 21st through 26th. And then my next event after that is GovCon, which is in Bethesda, Maryland, which is really close to Washington, D.C. And that's very close to where Black Mesh is based. So I'll pair that trip with trip to the office. So I'll go to the office and work a couple days. I'll go to the con. A bunch of my coworkers will go to the con because it's so close. And then after the event, I'll probably go back to the office and work a couple days. And that's really a good opportunity for me, since I'm remote, is to have an event so close to work. So GovCon will be July 20th through 22nd.
Okay, great. So right now, is your job still primarily focused on, like, you're still community liaison, so your job is still pretty much this type of going to different Drupal events?
Yeah, going to events is still as keeps me as busy as it has. So that schedule is still quite full. I'm still blogging, but I'm not working so much on mentoring or on like random Drupal 8 issues anymore. My focus for the last few months has been on the security team. So over the summer, I started working on security issues, and then I got certified as a full member of the security team earlier this year after helping with the last release that had any Drupal 6 updates in them. And it was a huge release, but it was a lot of fun. So now when I sit down to work on issues, I typically think to myself, like, what should I work on? I should probably work on a Drupal 8 security issue.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. Happy Memorial Day to you. It was
Thanks.
great getting a chance to chat with you, and I'll look forward to seeing you around at some other events.
Yep, for sure. I'll be very much around.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye, Cathy.
Okay, bye-bye.